The next thing we want to improve here is this weird syntax. I don't like the fact that every time we use formic, we have to pass a function, and then we have to wrap our components with a fragment. This is ugly and unnecessary. Wouldn't that be nicer if we could use this component directly as a child of formic? That's what I'm going to show you in this lesson. So let's add a new component. I'm going to call this app form because formic already has a component called form. This is the same reason I called the other component app form field, because formic has a component called form field. Okay. Now here we create a component. In this component, we want to return the formic component. So let's copy these few lines, paste them over here. Now we close the formic tag. Okay. We want to set these props dynamically. So let's add a few props here. Initial values, onSubmit, and validation schema. Now we're going to replace all these objects with our props. Next we set onSubmit, and then we set validation schema. Beautiful. Now inside this formic component, we should add braces and pass a function, right? Now this function should return a JSX expression, right? So here I add parentheses so I can break this down into multiple lines. Now first we add the fragment, and then inside this fragment, we want to render our children. So what I'm doing here is the steps that we have to follow every time we have to build a form. I'm encapsulating all these details inside a single reusable component. So how do we get the children? We have done this before. We use the children prop and then render it inside this fragment. Okay, save the changes. Now the last thing we have to do is to import the formic component. So let's import formic. Here's formic, good. Now back to our login screen. I'm going to replace this with app form. Now we no longer need this ugly function and this fragment. So let's select our input fields and our submit button. Cut this code. So here's the function that we used to pass to formic. Let's delete that. Now, before we paste our input fields, let's rename this to app form as well. Okay. Now we paste our input fields, save the changes. So look at the end result. We have a form. Inside this form, we have a couple of fields. There is no duplication in our code. There is no unblur, unhandle change, set the error message, all these duplications. In the next lesson, I'm going to show you one extra technique to make this code even better.